All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody and happy St. Patrick's Day here in the States. We all thank you very much for joining us this morning. We're very excited for our guests that we have all the way from Kenya. My name is Samantha Goyret and I'm the Executive Director of the Northwest Tennessee Local Food Network. We're a nonprofit organization based out of Martin, Tennessee and Northwest Tennessee. And we would like to welcome all participant thoughts and ideas and questions. If you could just put those in the chat box. But while I'm introducing our guest speakers, please, we'd like for you all to introduce yourselves. So please in the chat, just put your names or your schools and where you're coming from, where you are in this world. And that way we could all start to get to know each other. So today we will be sharing information about Farm to School, and Farm to School is so important because it can address social and racial equity, and those are kind of big words, but we're going to dig deep down into it because really Farm to School provides an opportunity to learn about the culture of others as well as our own. So we're going to learn about stories of seeds and ways of growing and how Innovate Africa is working through 8 modules of sustainable development and green initiatives. Because really, at the end of the day, what we all do together is we eat. All of us like to eat food, right? Yes. And so our eating really is intertwined with this heritage and history and all these social dynamics that are around food. We also know that in teaching about food and horticulture, there are many wonderful opportunities to explore this cultural knowledge and community joy that celebrates the connections and innovations made in diverse cultures. So without further delay, I would like to introduce our guest today.
No, it was muted.
When I say your name, if you could just say hello, that way folks can know who you are. So we have Lisa Palais. She is the Director of Innovate Africa. Hello, Lisa. Hi. So Lisa has been an advocate for children. She's got a master's degree in social work, and she spearheads the women's programs, as well as including women enterprises and advocacy for their female students. Felix Onyango is the program director. He's a graduate of Masai Mara University with a Bachelor of Arts in Education. He brings an in-depth understanding of children, schools, communities, leaders, and teachers. He assists in development and execution of programs individualized to meet the school and students' needs. He also facilitates human resource mobilization, project planning, execution, and evaluation. Felix has worked with Innovate Africa as a community outreach officer for quite a while, and he is dedicated and passionate about education and the welfare of the children in Kenya. Bernard Wanjala Makinya, I hope I said that right, Bernard.
Yes, yeah.
He holds a Bachelor of Science in Agribusiness from Kenyatta University, also Human Resource Management from the University of Nairobi, and he has a diploma in biointensive agriculture from Manor House Agriculture Center in Kitale. He is an expert in agriculture, especially organic farming, both crops and livestock. And then we have Dixon Supeyotaki. He's the head teacher of the Olo Mayana primary and secondary school. They reach kids 4 to 14 years old. And he has been partnering with Innovate Africa to make sure that the learners have access to clean water, food, digital literacy, conservation agriculture, beekeeping, livestock banking, agroforestry, among many other things. And last but not least, we have Ernie Williams. He's the chairman of Innovate Africa. Ernie has spent more than 4 decades working in and out of Africa, at first assisting in the development of women's cooperatives and later as an eco-technologies advisor. In 2010, he turned his attention to education, convinced that critical thinking is essential for success in developing nations. Students learn by doing, and sustainability is best achieved through social enterprise. So without further delay, I'm going to pass the mic over to Mr. Ernie Williams.
Thank you very much, Samantha. To begin with,
Can I just know for a minute, with our schools in West Tennessee, who do we have in the chat today? And I know some of you are muted. Rebecca, I see you.
We got Westview High School over here in Martin.
We're Dresden Elementary, 4th grade.
We're Martin Elementary, 5th grade.
That's great. So we have high school and primary school children. So we say secondary and primary. In US, I guess we say elementary and high school. So we, Innovate Africa, work mostly with primary schools, but our primary school students can be quite old, you know, even 17 or 18 years old. So let me just ask the first question. Do you guys know where Kenya is? Because actually, if I can get the slide number 2, which should go there. Aha, can everyone see that?
Yes.
I'm gonna assume that you can. So we're in Kenya. We're in East Africa, as you can see right here where my arrow is pointing, drawn a little circle around Kenya. We are precisely on the equator. So if anybody is wondering, how long are our days and nights on the equator? And I can answer the question, because we're on the equator, 365 days of the year, our days and nights are precisely the same length of time. Whereas if we were in Tennessee, you know that in the summer, like around June 21st, the sun could be going down at 9 p.m. and around December 21st, 4:20 p.m. So we have exactly the same length of days, 365 days of the year. And in some places, we have 3 growing seasons. There is technically no time of the year we can't grow food. So what we've undertaken to do with Innovate Africa is to assist our children in growing food at their schools and for their schools. So
In front of all the
why-
bigger schools.
Go ahead, sorry. So while we call this farm to school table in Tennessee, where we are in Kenya, we call it school farm to school table, because literally our desire is to grow food inside our schools, on school grounds, and feed our schools every day a nutritious lunch. Now, interestingly, where we live, with all of our resources, it has been very, very dry. In fact, we've actually experienced one of the worst droughts we've ever experienced in 40 years. But because we have taken the steps to get organized in advance, and our children help us find water, and we catch water in water ponds, we're able to feed probably 5,000 children a school lunch every day. And sometimes that's all the food they get. So you follow me, we are growing a nutritious lunch for 5,000 school children every day. But we're not quite as advanced as you guys are in Tennessee in terms of our cooking methods, in terms of having an organized kitchen, and in terms of a variety of food. So part of our sponsorship with your group is to share ideas as to how to supplement these activities to have better meals. And what we offer you are some ideas that we have about local growing, sustainable agriculture, and organic gardening, because for us, We have to be organic. Often we can't even afford the chemicals and fertilizers it would take to be inorganic. So we've learned a lot about it on our own. A little bit of statistics. Now everybody kind of follow along with me here and ask questions if you need. Africa has 17% of the world's population, and our population will double by 2050. So in 27 years, we'll have twice the number of people we have now. That's not going to happen in the US. In fact, in many developed countries around the world, our populations are technically shrinking. But our families in Kenya tend to have a lot of kids, maybe like 5 kids for each couple. It's a lot more than US. In fact, US, I think, has less than 2. So except for immigration in the United States, our populations are shrinking. Now, Kenya's population is 54 million people. The United States is like 330 people, 330 million people, I'm sorry. Our population has increased 500%. That's 5 times in the last 50 years. On the agriculture end, our agriculture comprises 33% of our gross domestic product in Kenya. 40% of our population works in agriculture, but 70% of our rural population, our country population, is engaged in agriculture, and that's the sector that we work in. Whereas 100% of all Americans have access to clean water. In Kenya, 29% have access, 59% have access to clean water, and 29% access to improved sanitation. Now, just so you guys can see this picture, I don't know if I've covered it up, I don't think I have. These kids right here, they are standing on what we call a moneymaker pump. So this is how we take water from our water ponds and irrigate our crops. They literally push up and down with their feet like they would on a Stairmaster. So just so I can tell everybody, it's interesting that I have these like streaks on my screen. We have 8 learning modules. And these are things that we found that schools need to do for themselves to educate their children. So our first one is clean water and health, providing clean water, sanitation, healthy drinking to all children in our schools. The second, and that's why we're here today, we're talking about food security. How do we make sure that everybody has enough food that's nutritious enough to sustain life? We have some other modules that we're going to talk about a little bit later, but not so much time. Reforestation. So we think about our environment, we think about carbon production, and in Kenya, with our large population, we have cut down a lot of our forests. And now it's important for us to try to reforest our environment by planting trees. I've always said that maybe Kenya is going to save the world through beekeeping. As you guys know, bees are responsible for about 80% of all pollination that goes on the earth. In Kenya, most of our bees are wild, and our hives are very healthy for this reason. Whereas you might have heard in USA, billions of our bees are in one place or just a few places. So our pollination concepts are actually safer in Kenya and in Africa than many places on the earth. So if pollination fails because beehives fail, we're actually the people who are ahead of the game. We have more and healthier bees than a lot of places. We also teach people how to grow chickens, eggs. Chickens are generally good for the environment. Eggs are high protein, really a good source of food. For our livestock banking, it's kind of interesting. Our people, our Maasai people, are basically pastoralists. Now, does everybody know what a pastoralist is? All right. Pastoralist means people who herd animals as part of their way of life. So literally our Maasai people are cow, goat, and sheep people. They measure their wealth by the size of their herds of livestock. They literally walk from place to place looking for greener pastures for their animals. So where Innovate Africa comes in is we help people grow food where they are without moving. So in a way, we're trying to help with the nomadic process of moving from place to place so people can grow food in their lands where they are in a more eco-sustainable manner. We do solar panels and we provide solar lights for children. You guys may remember that I said our sun comes up at what time? 6:30 every morning, 365 days of the year. Our sun goes down at what time? 6:30 in the evening, 365 days of the year. And how many people actually have electricity in their homes? Only 10%. So 90% of our children that we help don't have any lights in their house at night. So we help by providing them solar lamps that they can use to study. And the last step, and we'll get to this a little bit later, we're the first people to put computers in front of children so that they could learn computer technologies and have exposure to things like the internet that we're using today. So we have some of our teachers online, but they're getting internet from their cell phones because we don't yet have cables running to all of our areas in Kenya. And yet we have cell phone service almost everywhere. So that's essentially Innovate Africa. The 8 is for the 8 learning modules that you see on your screen now. Any questions so far? Now, I know people have got their microphones muted, but how many people know about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? Okay, the United Nations in 2015 created a list of 17 critical sustainable goals, sustainable development goals that they think all people on the planet should have by the year 2030. Number 6 is clean water and sanitation for all. So our first step is to help everyone have clean water, and the picture that you see is a 10,000 liter water tank that collects rainwater off of roofs, our primary way of getting drinking water for people who don't have running water. But teachers, classes, look at our sustainable development goals. They're really important. All 7 SDGs, our sustainable development goals, are the blueprint for the future as established by the United Nations. Now, what happened in Kenya? So Here we are in schools and you guys are doing reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? How many of you know how to use geometry to measure the height of a tree? How many of you know how to use physics to determine how much water can pass through a pipe? How many of you use your mathematics to learn how to make money by selling the crops you grow? In Kenya, we found out we were teaching our basic school skills, reading, writing, arithmetic. Our children would memorize, they would write the answers on a test and they wouldn't learn it. So the Ministry of Education in Kenya began a program called the Competency-Based Curriculum. And already Innovate Africa was working on this, and we called it activity-based learning. Because agriculture became part of what we learn in school, part of our curriculum, our schools, with our help, all teach agriculture. We teach our children how to grow food, how to cook food, and how to have nutritious meals in their schools. And our teachers are all involved. And people like Bernard Makania, who is our lead agriculturalist, is in schools every day, helping our schools grow food, serve food, eat food, cook food. And that's the reason for our partnership, because we know you guys will have ideas that we don't have, and maybe we have some you don't have. So just to move on just a little bit, how do we collect water? Well, can you see what we have here? This is a giant water pond with the bulldozer that we helped dig it at one of our schools. So this has filled up, and this will hold approximately 3 million liters of water. Now you guys do liters, right? So a liter is about 3.75 liters in a gallon. So you divide 3 million by 4 and you get about 1.75. I'm doing this wrong, I'm sorry. You got about 800,000 gallons. Am I right? 800,000 gallons in this water pan. And we hope that that's enough that we can water our crops, and even children can have water to drink, particularly in emergencies when water is scarce. Here is another way to collect water from rainfall. We have made concrete on the side of a hill, and this catchment area collects 270,000 liters of stored water when it rains. Now, we talked a little bit about our Maasai people. You may notice that they dress like this, and they all have cows. So this is probably a second or third grader in our Maasai areas dressed in his traditional clothes. Now, just so you know, you can see your screen. Kenya has 25 million cows, but 55 million people. United States has 94 million cows and 330 million people. So as you can see, per person, we have more cows, more goats, more sheep per person than the United States. This is driving down the road. This is what it looks like, guys. Suddenly you have an entire herd of goats and sheep right in front of you. See you behind. Here we are. All right, so here we are. Our two pictures. These are children on the left who've grown their own food. These are kales and cabbages sometimes. And on the right, we have a cooking day that we did at one of our schools where children learned to prepare food and serve it to everybody. How do we prepare our land? Here is a little bit different than what you're used to. Because we don't have so much water, we mulch. We provide ground cover to avoid evaporation. So what you can see here is our students placing cover on the ground to make sure that the soil retains moisture so our crops can grow between our rainy seasons. So you guys have fall, spring, summer, winter, right? We have basically sort of a spring to fall all the time, but we have 2 rainy seasons. The long rains, which should appear between March, April, May, and the short rains, which would be in November, December. But our rains have failed us over the last several years. And that's why we do everything we can to preserve our access to water, including our mulching, so the sun cannot evaporate the moisture in our soils and our crops will grow better. Nursery beds. All of our children in all of our schools start cabbages, kales, tomatoes, butternut squash, melons, onions, all in nursery beds, which you can see we've constructed here with some shading so that our nursery plants don't get too much sun. Composting. Whereas in the USA, we're able to utilize inorganic fertilizers, etc., we also compost our materials, green materials, straw, manure, grass cuttings, excess food into a compost pile. We cook it. Actually, a compost pile will cook, and we utilize it when it's ready, when the temperature rises because it's decomposing. So again, we're trying to teach every child sustainable agriculture, and you'll notice that I misspelled sustainable, just that. And this includes on the left, this is one of our greenhouses, and these children are growing tomatoes. And with our maize, we actually dry it, we put it in bags, and we cook it later. So our food storage is limited because we don't have refrigeration. So basically our goal is for each school to grow enough food for a school lunch each day for every student in that school. And here you have some children watering our plants, and you notice the mulching material on the ground. These are cabbages, and these students are cooking, which they do basically over fires. And here you have it. We have some carrots these students grew. And on the right is a combination of maize, beans, oil, and maybe some other things like perhaps some sheep or goat. This is how we cook, guys. This is basically it. A fire and a large pot. And these students, I believe, are making potatoes that they grew. Just so you know, last year we grew more than 50,000 trees that we replant to try to improve our environment. Remember, trees take in carbon dioxide and they breathe out oxygen. Just the opposite of what people do and what cars do. We do solar, as I said. So here is a school called Ollantaytambo Arid Zone. And here we've designed solar panels that run a pump from our water pond to irrigate our crops. And you can see on the right, we have like 10 acres, cabbages, kales, carrots, onions, even some fruit trees. And we're operating this with a pump, solar energy, extracting the water from a pond and irrigating these fields. Anyway, here's cooking day. Here's some of our kids. If you can tell, I know it sounds a little silly, but they all made chef's hats out of cardboard. And they were really proud of this. I know it seems a little silly, but they really enjoyed dressing like chefs and finding clothes that they had at home to wear so they could be our cooks for the day. And when you guys come to Kenya, we're going to cook with our children. Just so you know, this is how we store our food. These are bags of maize and beans, which we dry first. Then we store them and we cook them later because, again, we don't have refrigeration. And here is Bernard and some children on planting day. They're pretty happy. They're getting enough food in the fields that are going to provide their lunch for the rest of the year. And just for fun, because we live in Kenya, here are some hippos. We have hippos in our waters. Here are some cabbages that we grew at Olentutu Arid Zone School. I need to tell you a little bit about these. These are called vertical gardens. So I think the next picture is a little bit more explanatory. Oh, you see on what we did? We utilize a stair-step method because when you put water in the top, it waters everything down below. So we save about 80% of water evaporation by growing food in vertical gardens, which you can see here, we use gunny sacks and the vegetables actually grow out of the sides. So this is a water saving device and we teach it in our schools. Again, these kids have a new water reservoir pond that they made to irrigate. On the right, we have cabbages. And this is kind of an interesting one. On the left, we have a boy named Martin. Martin was the only kid in our school that didn't have a school uniform. And in this school, he didn't even own any shoes. But it turned out Martin was a genius at growing crops. And we had given our children seeds and they were taking them home and growing them. And we found out that Martin was actually feeding his family with the food that he was growing at home. So we kind of helped Martin get a school uniform, buy some shoes, and he became an inspiration to our school and a leader because of everyone in the school, he was best able to grow crops on his own. So if you're looking at the picture, that's a rake that Martin made out of wood that he found around his home. Martin is 10 years old. He was a class 5 fifth grader when this picture was taken. So we're really proud of him. And we hope that he's an inspiration to our other children who we encourage to grow food at their homes and help their families have nutritious meals. So it's just kind of a great thing. And Martin taught not only his village, but even the kids at school, inspired them to go home and grow their own food. Just so you guys know, just for fun, Kenya is one of the largest flower exporters in the world. So not that this happens in our schools, but we have flower farms and you guys have Kroger, right? The grocery store Kroger. If you go buy groceries in Kroger or Publix and you see those flowers in the cellophane wraps, they just might have been in Kenya being wrapped up only 2 days ago. So we're one of the largest exporters of flowers in the world. And just a couple of other pictures. We have mountains that are 17,000 feet. That's higher than any of the Rocky Mountains, not quite as high as Mount Denali in Alaska, but 3,000 feet short of that. So this is Mount Kenya at 17,000. We also grow tea and coffee. So here's some people in tea plantations. And of course, as you guys know, we have rhinoceroses, elephants, lions, and even cheetahs. So my last slide is a mother and two babies that are eating the Thompson gazelle that they killed last night for a little food. And that is the end of my presentation, but please ask questions and we may have questions of you as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ernie. That was an excellent presentation of everything that you do. And then in between, so I'd like to ask some in between questions, more about the curriculum and how is it that, you know, you said that before it was pretty much teaching, you know, reading, math, arithmetic, science, but how do you integrate, and maybe Bernard could answer this, or Felix, how is the curriculum integrated into like the daily workings of school? So how do you find the time to farm with the children, but also teach them basic concepts?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm Bernard. And the good thing is agriculture or farming is part of a subject that is being undertaken in those schools. So what we do is that we look at the activities that are in those textbooks that usually teachers used to teach in their class. And we see how we can integrate and of course support them in enriching what they are training while they're in class. So it becomes very easy. And we also have some teachers that we trained on agriculture, on what we do. So what happens is that once we build the capacity of those teachers with what they gain from the colleges, it becomes very easy for them to deliver even much better to the children. So we look at their curriculum and then see how best we can support them to be able to deliver well to those children.
Excellent. Well, and while you're talking, what's one of your favorite things about what you do?
Yeah, one is that look at the schools that we work with and compare with the schools that we are yet to recruit and work with them. There is a real huge, big difference because for us, we go beyond just the class lessons and do practical in the field, but we also have some schools that we don't work with. Some of them, they don't actually carry out the practical in the field. So we even go ahead to look at their performance in terms of what they are grasping in school. Because if someone is taken through a theory lesson, and then you go ahead and do a practical in the field, the rate of absorption of the knowledge is really high. And it's so interesting. Actually, it's so interesting working with the children. And you saw what Anne was presenting, a picture that I took with the children out after they had just taken the lunch and they had harvested some crops in the field, and even some were taking some vegetables back home. They are really, really so excited. And we always tell them that as we work with them in the field, it's not a punishment, but it will really make it to be more of a fun. So they do it more of a fun. Of course, also looking at the benefits they are getting from what they harvest in the field, and they benefit from the harvest. It really becomes more of a fun and a lot of learning, having questions, and of course interacting with them. And we even go ahead to award the best performing children by giving them some seeds to go and plant at home. We also give them some solars for those who are the best in field activities and based on what they are doing in their garden. So we really make it to be a real fun learning kind of environment for them, which is so really interesting. At the beginning, we start with maybe a 1 or 2 grades, but at the end of the year, you realize that like all the grades are coming for you, wanting to join the others and do all those activities. This year we had those 6th grade moving to the 7th grade. And now they were graduating from they were to another grade. So the other grade is brought on board. And they kept on insisting, how best can you also continue working with that? So we had to have a discussion with the school and see how we can have an extra plot for the 7th grade, which had just graduated from the 6th grade. So we really make that kind of environment really look really interesting for them, encouraging them to really like participate willingly and not really forcing them.
Have you ever had any children not want to try any of the foods that they grew?
Yeah, we do visit. We do visit their farms and see what they do. And actually, Martin was just one of the boys. And out of what we saw, actually it gave us like more of an insight to visit more. So we visit their homes, and we get so many good stories from the parents. I once visited a home, and when I was there, the way the parents really invited me, and they had to really take me to the field. You can imagine a parent taking you to the field and explaining what the child is doing. Really a lot of love and a lot of learning going on just across the children that we work with.
But I will say this, because I was raised on a farm, I like to eat the raw vegetables, which is a bit shocking to some of our children. Oh, and by the way, I think you can see it. This is Bernard. I think he really loves his job. And sometimes Bernard sends pictures and he's sitting and eating lunch with all these children. So I really appreciate him and his dedication. And of course, Felix, who is online with us now. We have such a wonderful team working in the field every day, and they're really inspiring to our children, many of whom have not really grown food before. So if I can tell you a little bit, because these children, many of them are Maasai, and they are pastoralists, they have not had growing food as part of their culture, only raising animals. So even in Martin's school, remember Martin was the one we were talking about, who's growing food at home. Well, when we first started, parents would come and complain, why are you punishing my child, making the child work in a garden? This is punishment. And we said, no, wait. This is now part of our curriculum. And ask your children. They love growing things. They love working in the garden. And so we've made a lot of progress in that direction, but you can see where we started.
Okay, we have some questions. I'll go with Lacey Watson's question first. She says her students are wondering what the primary language of the schools, if it is not English. And they want you to say something in your native language. This is for Lacey's class.
Hey, Felix, why don't you take this one? I think you're there. Hello, Felix.
Hi, how is everyone? So Kenya has 45 and more tribes now, but the schools you work with are majorly Maasai. This is a Ma community, so the language they speak is Ma. Most of our teachers that are with us here are able to speak Ma. I myself is not able to speak Ma, so, and Bernard too, but we know a few of that. Like if you want to say thank you, you say Asheoling. And if you want to call someone, you can say O or Owene. But other than that, I think we do speak more Swahili in Kenya. And Swahili, I don't know what the student really wanted to hear, that you can speak in Swahili. But if you say nakupenda sana, that means I love you so much. So I don't know whether I've been able to answer your question.
And how would you say good morning?
Habari ya asubuhi.
Oh, that's hard.
Barida. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay.
Can I add something to that too? I think
Yes.
a lot of our students probably know some Swahili and they don't even realize it because they've seen the movie Lion King. So when you say Hakuna Matata, what you're saying is everything's okay. Don't worry, no worries. A lot of people know that. And also the word Simba, the name Simba, it means lion in Swahili.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, Trista Snyder, she is at Weekly County Schools and she has a lot of questions. So I'm gonna kind of break this up. How much of the school day do the students spend on farming and cooking? Do you serve meat each day as well? If so, do the students help with killing, processing, and cooking the meat? Okay, so let's ask that first part of the question.
Do you want to take this or should I?
So most of our kids eat cereals, what we grow in the farm. Apparently we don't grow, or rather we don't rear goats, but these are pastoralist communities. So every homestead have goats, sheep, and cattle. So all the boys know how to slaughter a goat, and they do this mostly when they are going through their rites of passage. I hope you understand what I mean by this. When they attain a given age, when they transition to be adults, they have a rite of passage where they're able to stay in the bush and slaughter a goat using a knife, and they can prepare it until it's ready meat. It might not be the kind of meat that you find in five-star hotels. It's a little chewy. If you come to Kenya, we call it nyama choma, which means roasted meat. Lisa has a problem eating it because it's too chewy, but we like it chewy. So we like it chewy. But on a daily routine, we feed our kids a mixture of maize, beans, and vegetables, which all of that is grown in their farms by themselves, by the help of our teachers, Bernard, and all of us. So, and the ratio is based on the WFP, World Food Program ratio of 150 grams for maize, 40 grams for beans, and a little veggies based on what we have in our farms.
Okay, and so the second part of our question is, so do you grow wheat and have bread products like we have in the US? And do you have stores like we have in the US you can purchase food to supplement your meals? So just to add to that, so Ernie, you were saying that all of the schools produce their own meals, but if there isn't enough food produced to feed all the students, what do you do?
Well, this is part of our sustainability quotient. And so with each school, we've worked out a number of acres that they should have under cultivation in order to feed the whole school. So let's say we have like 400 children. Given the production that we're getting per acre, it might take, say, 6 acres to create enough maize and beans primarily, plus the green vegetables we grow in the kitchen garden, which I've mentioned, and they might only have 4. So we ask the parents to supplement this by paying a small amount into the school feeding program, which then is a bit of an incentive for them to help us lease a couple more acres. So we can do 400 kids on about 6 acres, and that'll grow enough food to create a sustainable food program. Now, when I say sustainable, what I mean is it makes enough money to buy its seeds, its fertilizers, pay for the plowing, and care for the next crop every year. So not all of it is eaten, some of it is recycled. And so when we do our mathematics, if you lease an acre of land that you have, you can actually, for the same amount you can get paid in rent, we can grow 9.3 times that value in food. So we work with small amounts, say 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we work up in acreage until we're feeding the entire school. As for wheat, we don't really process wheat in our schools, but wheat is processed around us. Some of the schools also lease out wheat fields, barley fields, etc., and they get back the raw, milled wheat, milled maize, etc. And you probably saw a picture where they were making chapatis, which is a dough product. It's like a pancake. We have chapatis in USA. It's bread, but it's thin like a pancake.
Mhm. So thank you. Last question, Jasmine asked, what are your methods for pest control on the farms?
Well, we try to be as organic as we can, but we do have to engage in some poisons. We try to keep it as light as possible. We found often our organic methods, as an example, aphids, we found that a mild soap gets rid of aphids. White flies we've had on some tomatoes, and we actually had to engage in inorganic poison. We do plant, I'll say cover crops, but as an example, if we're having cornworms or something, we can plant beans around the corn, and or just some organic matter that also provides nitrogen to the soils that cornworms like to eat. And so we try and stay as organic as we can, but our focus has to be on growing enough food to, grow enough food for the kids to eat at lunch.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe just also to add something small, please. In the kitchen gardens, what we also try to train the children on how they can control the pests. We also take them through what we call the repellents. They do plant some repellent plants like the marigold. We have the garlic, the Tithonia diversifolia. These are just plants that help in repelling some of the pests like the aphids. So they prepare some solutions out of it. We call them the botanical extracts from those plants, and then they apply on their crops to help in repelling away some of the pests. But as just the way Annie mentioned, we also really try to emphasize on mulching, the use of the ash, also on the planting, like they do the early planting just to be able to control some of the pests and diseases that either they might come if you either plant early. They might not come if you plant early, but if you delay in terms of planting, there are high chances of those pests also attacking your crops. But if you do plant on time and a bit early, it tends to really help in protecting your crops.
So
Okay.
how can folks visit Kenya? How can we come and see you and meet you all? Ernie, you want to share some project you're working on with the University of Tennessee at Martin?
Unmute. Sorry, I was muted. Yes, and actually Dr. Todd Winters, I believe, is on our conference. And so Dr. Winters has come to Kenya some years ago, and this July, we'll have students from University of Tennessee at Martin, about 15 of them, along with professors and department heads, and we will be studying agriculture, livestock, reforestation, even geology in Kenya. But anybody that wants to come, we are very, very happy to arrange for you guys to be here. We will pick you up at the airport. You can meet some pretty amazing children, and most people think it's pretty memorable. I think Samantha has pulled up our website, and it's up in the corner. Anybody that wants to visit us, it's innovate with an 8 africa.org. And you can leave us a message there, or you can even email me. We're always happy to respond. And we really want to know your ideas, because what we haven't gotten into, because Samantha was doing it, is how do you like to cook food? What do you have in your farm to school table programs? We haven't even touched on that. So we're always very curious.
Unfortunately, we don't have enough time, but maybe we could schedule a whole nother conversation and talk about the flip side on our side of the world. Again, you can visit innovateafrica.org. We will be, this meeting has been virtually recorded, and we will be posting the video on our blog. If you go to nwtnlfn.org, our blog is always on the front page, and you will see it pop up right there. There's 2 opportunities for all to be engaged. We do have volunteer opportunities upcoming. If you want to volunteer, click on the volunteer link here on our webpage, on our homepage. There's a list of different opportunities y'all can get involved in. But more than that, we really want to encourage everyone. And here's the blog right down here. There we are. Hello. And then we would also like to really encourage everyone, even children, to participate in this year's Grow Food Challenge. We will be offering free seeds at the Martin Farmers Market on Earth Day. Great way to celebrate Earth Day on April 22nd. You can pick up your free seeds. We're also having a plant and pot swap at 11. So come to the Martin Farmers Market Saturday, April 22nd from 9 to 12. And you can pick up some free seeds. You can switch out some plants if you want. There's going to be other different organizations there sharing conservation methods, how to compost, how to plant your seeds. And we're just going to have lots of fun. We'll even have some jump ropes and maybe some hopscotch. So please join the Grow Food Challenge. We encourage everyone to start dabbling in the art of growing your own food, because it makes us healthier people. It makes our communities healthy. And we are all connected by this wonderful, beautiful earth that we live on. And the more that we can grow our own food and plant trees and work on these sustainable initiatives that Innovate Africa has shared with us, the better we are in the future and the healthier we are today. So thank you, Ernie, Lisa, Bernard, Felix, Taki, and I wasn't sure who else was on, but thank you, Innovate Africa, for joining us today and sharing the amazing projects that you're doing. And thank you all participants for joining us. And hopefully we will continue this conversation on another day. We could schedule another meetup and continue our discussion. Let's keep us connected.
Thank you, Sam.
Olia Sere.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.